Hi everybody and welcome to Learn Live Streaming Live. This is an impromptu live stream today, so a lot of weird and wonderful things happening with my stream. And this is the thing, if you haven't been streaming lately, then you do get a little bit rusty, and I have missed a week. So I hope you had a great Christmas. I hope you're having a good time at this time of year. I know it's been a very long year for some of us, and I am feeling a little crunchy, a little burnt out, but I thought it might be fun today just to have an informal social stream and just sort of see what happens. So what I'm going to do, I've got my coffee. Here's my coffee. It's probably getting a little bit cold now, and I'll resist the urge to slurp too much of it on camera. But we are going to do some editing in DaVinci Resolve today. So let me bring up DaVinci Resolve. It was a new version released a little while ago, and I have upgraded just before the stream. I'm going to come into my OBS sources show. This was actually an OBS obsessed show that I did some time ago. And I guess what I want to do, I have created, I kind of want to call it a short. It's technically like a vertical video. It goes for longer than 3 minutes, which is incredibly annoying because I really wanted it to be YouTube short. So I'm going to have to think about how I can cut that down. But if we go back into some of our other stuff, and the other thing I'm going to have to do too is I'm going to have to turn off my clean feed, because I won't be able to see any chat comments come in on that monitor if I don't have that off. Okay, so we've got a few different timelines here, and let me just talk to you about what's actually happening. And again, I've got my speed editor going here in the background. I'm actually not, I've got a, let me just check for a second. Okay, so you probably can hear that audio. Hopefully it doesn't get too annoying. Let me know if it does get too annoying. Let me know in the chat if you are watching too. That would be really awesome. But essentially, I have sort of cut this one portion out of here. But let's go back to the original timeline. So this is actually a sub clip. So this is me taking a portion of the main clip to edit into a short. But let's go back to the time clip itself. Timeline number 1. There's a few things going on here, and I might just make this larger so you can see what's happening. This is a live stream that goes out horizontally. Like this thing at the top is what most people would have seen, but I do also have the Ada Vertical plugin recording a version of me that is in this portrait orientations as a bit of a backup. So now, and there will be portions of this clip where I won't be sharing my screen, although in this particular live stream, a lot of it was me just screen sharing and showing things like that. But at some point, and I might need to zoom out quite a bit to get a sense of where this is, but I'll have sort of me in both sections of that clip. And this does go for nearly an hour too, so you'll see at the top is actually what the live stream was, and the bottom is sort of just my camera alone. And it goes through the theme music and the opening sequence and whatnot. And then you'll see sort of that's generally what that looks like. But what I want to do for this one, and this is the OBS sources show, and I think this is, it's funny, I talk about scenes and sources a lot because I to me that's kind of the thing that makes up OBS, and I think a lot of people think it's much more technical than that, but it really isn't. So what I'm going to try and do is going to create a few more sub clips out of this so that they can potentially be vertical clips. And in some ways, all I need to do is sort of go through this and find those clips. So let's do that first. I'm going to go, and this is potentially going to be quite annoying, but I'm going to go through this really quickly. In fact, use of a web. I mean, the great thing about this is the way I set up the show was that I sort of had some text on screen to indicate what I was going to talk about. So I can probably see where a lot of that stuff actually is. And if you prefer... Alright, let's just stop for a second because I'm not really sure where I'm up to. Okay. I knew what now without see it. A very all beaten do I'm looking back very still the yeah. I know respect that just when you yourself well let's see be it goes we will do bye. Well look so I've got some stuff here about window capture. I can only imagine how demented this will sound if you're not watching along with me, but I'm just scrolling through the footage, so we're gonna go back a little bit. And that actually is, I think that's the 9th segment in this live stream. And the thing I probably should have done is actually set up OBS in such a way to actually clip these out properly, because we can put markers from OBS that DaVinci Resolve can recognize. But I feel like I'm way too far ahead in this, so I'm just gonna see there we go. See there we were sort of introducing the various things, and I was sort of showing you how you can use a camera with OBS, and that was my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. So video and audio input, I've kind of done that one, I think. And there's sort of an overview of the different segments I was covering. So display capture. On ask. So look, what I might do at this point, and I'm just going to put an in point so I know where this segment starts, and let's just listen to a little bit of it. Display capture. So the thing about this one, and I'm going to have to open something in the background really quickly just so that I've got it as an example. I'm going to actually start up some keyboard software called Analog Lab 5. And I'm actually just going to throw it onto a different screen. I've actually got 4 different screens here. I'm going to put this on the field monitor, which is, you'll see in a second, is generally just a place I keep a clock, so I know how I'm going for time. But if we want to capture an entire display... Alright, and there's a lot of me just waffling on about nothing at the beginning of that clip, so I'm actually going to change the in point to this section, which I think is kind of me getting to the point. But if we want to capture an entire display or entire monitor, we can do this with display capture. So if I go down to my sources, I click add a new source, and we want to go to display capture. Again, you might want to give this a particular name. I'll call this one field monitor because I know that's the screen I'll be capturing. And we've got the capture method. If you have problems with one of these, you can explore the other ones, but generally I just leave this on automatic and move on with my life. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. And again, I've got 2 monitors that are the same brand and the same size, and it doesn't really, except for the primary monitor bit, which is a Windows setting, it doesn't really differentiate between these, but I can sort of select which one I want to use. But in this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not 1920 by 1080. It's a little bit smaller, which is fine for my purposes today. So I'm going to select that. And now you're going to actually see what's on that screen. And again, it's just that audio app. And I don't actually have the keyboard turned on, but that's not particularly important for my purposes today. The other option that we have here is capture cursor. So if and I'm just going to move this over to the side a little bit, but if I have that turned on, you'll see when I move the cursor around that app, you'll see where it is. And again, that's really good for for software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. But the great thing about this is once we've got this here, we can make that larger. You can actually hold down the Alt key and crop in. So maybe if I just wanted the, I say that, but that didn't work. Let me try that again. Alt. There we go. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that in. So if you're, like, especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share just one little part of it, this is a good approach to do that. And I can drag in. And hello to Frozen Fusion. Thank you for being here. Today we're checking out all the different OBS sources. Well, not all of them, I should say. Just the ones that I find super helpful. So again, this is just a display capture. Again, I'm capturing the entire window, but I could potentially crop in and reduce that. But again, if I right click on this and I go to transform and I go to reset transform, that'll take us back to what we had originally. So the big thing here is just to keep in mind that display capture captures the entire screen. And again, you can sort of crop that if you do want to only reveal a part of that, and especially if you do have a super widescreen monitor, one of those really long curvy things, and you want to capture a little bit, then cropping is a good approach to do that. I'm just going to turn it off. Let's move over to window capture. All right, so essentially this clip finishes about here, but it is way too long. So what I'm going to do, and I don't know if you can hear that, but my neighbors have never met a power tool they didn't feel compelled to own, and it is sort of Sunday morning and they're having a great time. But what I'm going to do, and I think I can do that from here. Maybe I can't do that from here. If I go to the cut page, essentially, and again, this is sort of the limits of my DaVinci Resolve understanding, but if I go display capture, I'm just creating a new compound clip. Okay, that's not really what I was after. So what I kind of want to do is create another sub clip, and I'm not really sure I remember how I did that the last time, but okay, that's really annoying. All right, so let me just see if I can Google something in the background to refresh my memory, because I've definitely done this in the past. All right. So I guess theoretically, I'm going to select all. No, I don't really want to select all. I want to select that time frame. There we go. Okay, so if I'm in the edit page and I right click on the selection, I can go create subclip. And then if I go back to my media pool, it will probably be there. I'm not really sure which one of these. They're sort of probably different ways of viewing this, you know. I might even just go back to here. So timeline subclip 2. I'm going to see if I can rename this one. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I don't really know. All right. Well, I imagine it's probably possible to rename the clip, but maybe I can't. Oh, timeline settings, maybe? No. Oh, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter too much for our purposes. I know this is the clip that I want to be working with. So I guess the first thing to note is, assuming this is correct, this goes for, okay, that's not right. Okay, the subclip does seem to have brought in everything, which is incredibly annoying and not what I wanted. So let's go back to our original timeline. I don't know if my selection will still be there. Looks like it might be. Can we... create subclip. Okay. I know I've done this before. That's what's so irritating about this, but evidently I don't remember how. Maybe I need more coffee. Maybe we should do that right now. Okay. Because really, what I want to do, I want to create this subclip, but I just want it to be that region. And the thing that's interesting is that it crops 14, the 14 minute part, but it obviously, I guess the in point isn't correct. So let's just see if we can find where that is and maybe reset it. Okay, so it's probably around here somewhere. So maybe I've just made a mistake and I have removed that in point. Let's see if we can bring it back in. Display capture. So the thing about this one, and I'm going to have to open something in the background really quickly just so that I've got an example. I'm going to actually yada 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 called add 5, and I'll actually throw it on different screen. I've got 4 different screens here. I'm going to put this on the field monitor, which is, you've seen this, it's really just like clocks, no time, no time. But if we want to capture the entire display, there we go. That's where I actually want it. So, did that do anything? I think it did. Okay. If we want to actually add, I guess the thing about this, and maybe I need to make sure I grab both of these. All right. So the question is, and I think it's right. So I'm back in the edit page, and I think I've selected my region. Let me maybe just zoom out a little bit to see where this ends. And I kind of know it's that 14-minute mark, so let's just see if we can find that. And it's probably a much more efficient way of doing this, but there we go. Okay, I think that's okay. I think that's right. Let's just try it again. So we're going to go right click, we're going to go create subclip. If I go back to my edit page, subclip 4 is presumably it. So let's double click and see if it worked. Okay. I might just jump back to the edit page so it's a little bit more obvious to me where I am in the scheme of things. But if we want to... Okay, so that has worked now. Again, I'm sure a lot of people are much cleverer than I am when it comes to DaVinci Resolve. I'm still very much a beginner. But the great thing about that is we now have that clip. The unfortunate thing about that is that clip seems to be 14 minutes and 46 seconds. Although I say that, but it's remembering the original section. So maybe this is sort of a constraint of the subclip format itself. Let's, like, just for argument's sake, so 14 minus 11. And yes, I shouldn't need to do a calculation for this, but I'm going to. So roughly 3 minutes. Okay. That's, you know, that's in the realm of possibility. So this is the point at which I have to... There are a few things that I need to do. First of all, you'll see that I've got a whole bunch of muted audio tracks. That's because I'm recording multiple tracks of audio out of OBS. I don't really need any of these. I'm going to actually unlink these. I think that'll do the job. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Not that though. And if I delete them, again, if this goes badly, we can always undo, but I think this will work. All right, now I've just got my 2 videos and my 1 track of audio. I might even just delete empty tracks. Okay, so I've still got 1 more, and I think it's because it's linked. So again, let me unlink that. Let me just go... again, make sure I only select the audio here. All right, and we'll get rid of that as well. Delete empty tracks. So I'm gonna actually, I think I will link these back together just to be on the safe side, but I think that's all right. Okay, so now I have to make a whole bunch of cuts, and unfortunately I've said a lot of things in here, so this is gonna be messy. This is the joy of editing. And in some ways, I love the idea of reusing the live stream, but sometimes I do think it probably would be better for me just to record this and just be a little bit more on topic. But if we want to capture an entire display or entire monitor, we can do this with display capture. So if I go down to my sources, I click add a new source, and we want to go to display capture. Again, you might want to give this a particular name. I'll call this one field monitor because I know that's the screen I'll be capturing. And we've got the capture method. If you have problems with one of these, you can explore the other ones, but generally I just leave this on automatic and move on with my life. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. And again, I've got 2 monitors that are the same brand and the same size, and it doesn't really, except for the primary monitor bit, which is a Windows setting, it doesn't really differentiate between these, but I can sort of select which one I want to use. But in this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not 1920 by 1080. It's a little bit smaller, which is fine for my purposes today. So I'm going to select that. And now you're going to actually see what's on that screen. And again, it's just that audio app. And I don't actually have the keyboard turned on, but that's not particularly important for my purposes today. The other option that we have here is capture cursor. Okay, so I think there's some sections in here we can take out. Let's if we want to capture an entire display or entire monitor, we do this with display capture. So if I go down to my sources, I click add a new source, and we want to go to display capture. Again, on this name, I'll just build on capture. And we've got the capture method. If you have problems with one of these, you can explore the other ones, but generally I this all move on with my life. At this point, this is the point at which we have different displays. And again, I've got... All right, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit just so I get a better sense of... And I'll make that larger too so I can see more of the waveform, which will help me as well. Automatic and move on with my life. So I'm actually going to put an in point here. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. Okay, so maybe that isn't my in point. I think this is where I want to be. So let me just nudge in with the wheel. In. And again, I've got 2 monitors that are the same brand and the same size, and it doesn't really, except for the primary monitor bit, which is a Windows setting, it doesn't really differentiate between these, but I can sort of select which one I want to use. But in this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. But in this... So, link selection, snapping. I might just turn off the snapping a little bit because I just want to... I just want to be a little... Markers, what have we got? Position lock. Okay, we don't want that. Link selection, snapping. Snapping actually isn't on, but I kind of just want to make sure... In fact, maybe I can do this with a mouse. Maybe that will be a little bit... No, it's sort of jumping a very particular distance, and it's kind of not what I want for this particular clip. Again, there's probably a setting for that somewhere. I don't know that I know it off the top of my head, and maybe for my purposes, I might even just set an out point here. And let's see if we can. Let me just zoom out a little bit so I can see what I'm actually working with. Because I think kind of what I want to do at this point is just ripple delete these sections. I don't know, like maybe I need to put some cuts in. In fact, let's just try it. We can always undo. So let's go ripple cut. Okay, they got rid of everything. So yeah, I definitely do need to put in those break marks. All right, let's just go to... So I'm going to go Control B for a break in there. Now let's go back to the beginning of our clip, or our endpoint rather. All right. Probably is a ripple. There is a ripple delete on here, so I'm going to try it on the speed editor. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to just turn off my in and out points. Obviously, there's a cut here. It's probably not a particularly elegant cut, but let's just see what that looks like right now. This is the point at which we have our different displays. But in this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not... Okay. So... And again, this is the kind of thing I would do normally on the cut page rather than the edit page. And I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just try it anyway. I'm going to try using the trim in option. I'm just going to... But in this case, I'm just going to use my... In this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. I think that's okay. I probably want to move. Will that work? There we go. Just trying to close that gap. Not sure if that actually did it. All right. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. But in this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not 1920 by 1080. It's a little bit smaller, which is fine for my purposes today. So I'm going to select that. And now you're going to actually see what's on that screen. And again, it's just that audio app. And I don't actually have the keyboard turned on, but that's not particularly important for my purposes today. The other option that we have here is capture cursor. So if so we have that. I mean, obviously the cut is discernible, and this is the point at which I would actually go in and sort of not try to hide the fact that there's a cut there, but actually kind of make it more obvious that there's a cut there. So if I go back to one of my other timelines, and again, I'm sure there's probably a better way of organizing that, but let me just go back here. I just want to find my original subclip, because there is a cut on this one as well, I believe. I don't remember where exactly, but I'm sure I can see it if I keep scrolling. You're using the link for add that's for to add device, where we can I'm going to call it currency, and we'll pick it. There we go. So this, I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Let's go back to my subclip. Paste attributes. No. All right. So I guess what I want to do is just recreate that that transition. I'm not really sure what it was called, but let's have a look. Blur dissolve. Okay. All right. Let's just go back to our existing clip. Go back to edit. Blur resolve. Or blur dissolve probably. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this onto both of these clips. So there are two different clips on this timeline, essentially this one at the bottom and this one at the top. Let me just zoom in and see what that looks like. Again, I might need to adjust the duration of that clip, but let's just see what that looks like with my life. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. In this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not 1920 by 1080. All right, I think that works pretty well. The other thing that we might even try and do, and I realize I'm jumping between projects and other projects, like different clips and whatnot. And again, it might be better to actually do this in the edit screen. So let me just see. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Let's go back to the very beginning of this clip. And let's just add a track, and I will paste. But if we want to capture an entire display or entire... All right, so again, I'm just reusing things that I've used for a previous clip. So in this case, I will say capture your entire... I might even see if we can make that a little bit larger. But again, I'll have to adjust the positioning of that as well, which might be under a different heading here. So center X. There we go. I think that works. But if we want to capture an entire display or entire monitor, we can do this with display capture. So if I go down to my sources, I click add a new source, and we want to go to display capture. Again, you might want to give this a particular name. I'll call this one field monitor because I know that's the screen I'll be capturing. And we've got the capture method. If you have problems with one of these, you can explore the other ones, but generally I just leave this on automatic and move on with my life. But this is the point at which we have our different displays. In this case, I'm just going to use my teleprompter. You will note that it's actually not 1920 by 1080. It's a little bit smaller, which is fine for my purposes today. So I'm going to select that. And now you're going to actually see what's on that screen. And again, it's just that audio app. And I don't actually have the keyboard turned on, but that's not particularly important for my purposes today. The other option that we have here is capture cursor. So if and I'm just going to move this over to the side a little bit, but if I have that turned on, you'll see when I move the cursor around that app, you'll see where it is. And again, that's really good for software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. But the great thing about this is once we've got this here, we can make that larger. You can actually hold down the Alt key and... All right, so... Wow. Okay, so DaVinci Resolve just crashed on me, so that's delightful. Let's just see if we can bring that back. Maybe I had a few too many of those sub clips open at the same time. All right, well, I'm going to drink some coffee while DaVinci reloads. That hasn't happened to me in a really, really, really long time, so I'm genuinely surprised that it's happening now. But let's bring this back. So I think we're on the right clip.
Entire display or
okay. So it actually didn't save a lot of my changes, which is super annoying. I'm going to have to redo some of these things. It hasn't happened in a really, really long time. So I'll say capture your whole display. Make that a little bit larger. Yeah, I think that'll work. And again, just go to our layouts and adjust the positioning of that. I think that works. Cool, cool. All right. So what I was doing before we did crash, and that genuinely hasn't happened to me in a really, really super long time. But essentially, there is some more of this clip that I want to get rid of. Although I'm curious, like if I go to the deliver page right now. Okay, so the duration of this is 2 minutes and 46 seconds, which is okay. Like that will be short enough for a YouTube short. But I do feel like I'm a little long-winded in parts here, so I want to take some more of this out. Okay, and it's not playing my video at all. There we go. It's suddenly not recognizing the speed editor, which is very, very annoying. Let's just go into the preferences. All right, I'm going to unplug this and I'm going to plug it back in, and let's hope that that makes a difference. Around that app. Okay, that fixed it. Awesome. All right, and again, I know this is not the most exciting thing in the world. I'm really just editing and sipping coffee and chilling out. So if you want to hang around, by all means. If you don't, have a great day. The cursor around that app, you'll see where it is. And again, that's really good for software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking. So you can turn that on and off. But the great thing about this is once we've got this here, we can make that larger. You can actually hold down the Alt key and crop in. So maybe if I just wanted the, I say that, but that didn't work. Let me try that again. Alt. There we go. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that in. So if you're like, and I think that's a really good point, but I think I am kind of a little bit, it takes me a little while to get there, so let's just making sure that I've got all 3 of these clips selected. I'm going to put a breakpoint in there. And escape. Let's go back and find out where we can clip this from. For software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. I feel like I do want a little bit of a gap there. And again, I'm just going to put a breakpoint in there. We're going to select these. And we're going to use the ripple delete key on the speed editor. Let's just see what that sounds like. For For software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that in. So if you're like, especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share just one little part of it, this is a good approach to do that. All right, so I feel like I might have skipped a little bit of context there, which might be annoying, but I kind of didn't want to dwell on the fact that, you know, it didn't work the first time I attempted this. So let's just, again, this is the joy of editing. We have to sort of keep going back to the sections and just seeing if they work or not. For software demonstrations, especially when you want people to know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that in. So if you're like, especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share. And to be honest, I think it's a really good tip. So I'm not really too bothered by the fact that that it is sort of not really introduced particularly well. But I'm going to trim out the previous clip because I think there's a little bit too much space there. Let's try that. And let's move this back here. In fact, if I do that, is that better? Oh, no. I don't know where you're moving to and where you're clicking, so you can turn that on and off. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that. And again, I think we will actually bring in we will bring in that effect again, that blur dissolve. So just on here. I actually don't, I actually kind of like the duration of that. That seemed to work pretty well last time. On and off. Hold down the Alt key, make sure you get the right key on your keyboard, and you can sort of drag that in. So if you're like, especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share just one little part of it, this is a good approach to do that. And I can drag in. And hello to Frozen Fusion. Thank you for being here. Today we're checking out all the different OBS sources. Well, not all of them, I should say. Just the ones that I find super helpful. So again, So I kind of feel like, I mean, obviously there's a shout out to Frozen Fusion, who was watching the stream on Twitch that day. But I kind of feel like after we explain that one point, because I do think it is a really good point, I think we can probably wrap up the entire video. So let's just double check where that thought ends. Especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share just one little part of it, this is a good approach to do that. So I'm going to say about here. Again, just make sure I get all those clips. And I'm going to ripple delete. And now if I go to exports, we've got 1:33. That's so much better. So the first clip I did from this stream went for over 3 minutes, which is too large for a YouTube short. It's too long for a YouTube short. So, which is incredibly annoying. And I'll probably have to go back in and edit that one and make it a little bit better. So what we're going to do now, because I think that works pretty well. Like there are probably points at which I might make this a little bit snappier. But what I really want to do, and I guess I won't select anything here. What I will do, I'll go up to the timeline. I will go to AI tools and I will go create subtitles from audio. It can default to the auto language, but I'm going to say quite explicitly that I want this to be English. We'll leave it on the default. I do like 2 lines. That's just me. I'm going to click create. And the AI is happening on my computer. It's not going to the cloud. It's not feeding any large language model. It's all happening locally, which is a good thing for sort of... I don't know. I always sound a little bit paranoid when I say this, but I don't really want to feed my information to other machines. Admittedly, that's very difficult these days because everything you do is sort of a copy and paste away. But now I've got my generated captions. Again, I should point out that this is actually in DaVinci Resolve Studio, which is the paid version. I don't think the free version will generate those captions for you. But if we go back to our earlier subclip, I do have subtitles on here. So what I want to do, again, without recreating the wheel, I suppose is what I'm trying to say, is that I kind of want to save this track as a preset. So I'm going to say OBS sources captions. And I'm going to go back to my subclip. And again, probably on the edit page would be the easiest place to do this. I'm just going to go... You'll see that my style is here. And I guess that's the thing. This will be here in all the projects in this section, in this database, I suppose, for DaVinci Resolve. But I'm just going to go load preset. And you'll see that that's changed the font, that's changed the positioning, it's made it a little bit smaller. Again, the thing I probably need to do is actually go through these captions. And I don't know, like this is probably a controversial thing, but I do like to keep the caption visible for as long as possible. So I will sort of lessen the gaps between these, which it's probably not great for everybody, but I just think, if I was trying to read these and these go pretty quickly, just having them on screen for as long as is practical can be really, really useful. So that's just something I do. I don't know that you necessarily need to do that, but I will just, own up to the fact that that's how I work. Again, because these are AI-generated captions, it will be very beneficial for me to go and watch this whole video and read these captions rather carefully. Make sure I'm not being misrepresented by them. The thing is a little bit. You'll see when I move the cursor around the app, you'll see where it is. Again, that's really good for but first one is actually when you want people to know where you're moving to. Where I'm just zooming in so I can get a better click on that particular angle. Again, like this caption will be visible over the top of this transition, which I personally don't have a problem with. But yeah, again, that's kind of almost a creative choice. All right. But especially if you've got one of those super widescreen monitors and you want to share one little bit, is a good to do that. And this is interesting because this, I kind of need to make a call about how quickly I stop this video from this point, because I sort of stopped speaking here. And I could cut it off immediately, but maybe I do want a little bit of time for this to breathe. Maybe I want it to do something else. So one little part of it, this is a good approach to do that. And I think that's... Look, I'm going to extend that for the whole thing. What I might do, actually, and it probably would be worthwhile. We have a that's for our title. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and find the original thumbnail for this live stream, because I guess and this will probably only really work on YouTube specifically, but what I want to do is, if I go back here, I kind of want to send people back to the live stream itself. If this was interesting for them, if this was worthwhile, then I want to send them back off to the OBS Obsessed show as a whole about this one. So I'm just finding my thumbnail. So scenes and sources. There we go, this one here. I'm literally just going to drag this on top of the timeline. It looks like it is putting it on a new thing, which is probably not what I particularly needed, but it is what it is. I'm actually just going to delete that so it doesn't go on forever. The zoom I will need to adjust because it's filling the whole screen. I mean, I could probably rotate this if I wanted it to fill the whole screen, but let's not do that right now. Let's just make this smaller. I think that's okay. So kind of what I want to do is... This is a good approach to do that. Probably the second I stop speaking, I will have that pop up on screen. And again, I could have adjusted that with a trim in as well. Little part of it. This is a good approach to do that. And I probably want to make it more obvious that is something people can go off and watch. So I might even look. I'm going to drag this down to this other clip because I think I probably will want to use another section of this clip. I'm not really sure. Like I probably want some sort of generator at this point. I probably need to think about that a little bit. But hopefully you've seen how I can take a live stream. I guess the one thing I didn't show you was essentially I have these, like if I just move back a little bit, I do have these two live stream recordings, and one of them's just me in a vertical format and one of them is the horizontal. And I have put those together. I've synced them together. I think that's something people are really scared of, is actually syncing audio to video or two different clips together. It's really not that difficult. Like if you just pick a point where you know the audio is starting, or you know, you can zoom in quite closely and just see the mouth movement and line those things up. It works really well. Again, I didn't need the audio from both of those clips, so I did sort of mute most of those and deleted a whole bunch of those, which you saw earlier as well. And I've got the captions. So in some ways, like this, you know, I hope the process has been interesting. And I know lots of people reach for their AI tools, and look, you do you. I don't want to get into an argument about that sort of stuff. I think as long as you're creating the things that you want to see in the world, that's fine. I'm not really bothered by how you get there, but some of those tools do... They do some weird things. They often take video, horizontal video, and stretch it in a weird vertical fashion that isn't particularly useful or interesting. They sort of arbitrarily cut sections out, and you know, the machine doesn't really understand the sections that are important and the ones that are just arbitrary. So, you know, I think even though this is definitely something I've had to do, I think it's worthwhile, and it's only taken an hour. And again, it may have taken even less time if I wasn't actually streaming this. So now I've got my clip. I can, but if we want to capture an entire display, or what I would do really is just watch this through and just especially keep an eye on those captions. But just to give you maybe some closure on how this should theoretically work, we want to go and export this. So this is the deliver page. This is this little rocket at the bottom of DaVinci Resolve. We can choose our format, and we can choose where we put this. I've got it as MP4. Again, I'm not too fussed about most of these settings. I think a lot of the time, any of these settings are fine. But we do want to make sure it's a single clip. I can sort of say where I want to save this. So in this case, I'm going to go new folder 002 display capture. And this is just my personal naming convention. So that's where it's going to save. The thing that probably is most meaningful for the average online creator is the subtitle settings. So we have a few different options here. We have the ability to export this as a separate file. And if you want to do that, a good option is SRT without formatting. And then you can specify which track you want to export in that fashion. I don't know if this will actually work, but I'm going to block that user because we do have a spammer in the chat, which is unusual. but it happens from time to time. So if you do have this as a separate file, what will actually happen is you won't visually see these captions here, but you'll get a separate subtitle file that you can upload separately. The other options you have are as embedded captions. And again, that will actually put the captions inside the video file, and that really does depend on whatever video player you're using has the ability to show that or not show that. And again, there are a couple of different codecs for that. But I think the one most of us will probably be reaching for is burn into video. So this will literally spit these captions out. And now when I'm happy with all of this, I can click on this button that says add to render queue. And you can see that this is actually one I've exported previously, which was that other clip about adding a camera to OBS. But I can add that here and I can go render all. I'm going to say don't render. I don't know why that first one is still there, but anyway. And you'll see it does its thing. And then I can actually go and open the file location and my video. And again, you won't hear the audio of this one, but just in the interest of showing you. And the important thing there really is just to note that those captions are burnt in. So the thing about this is if you do want different versions for different use cases, so maybe I want one without the captions burnt in, I can just do that as, you know, as a separate file, or I can also just turn off the export subtitle, and that way it'll render the video without any captions. We do also, if we go back to the edit page, if you go to the subtitle track, you can right click on here and you can go export subtitle. And this is often a really good thing to do. So if I go to my display capture, the only thing I will say is just make sure you choose subtitle files without formatting. They will sort of put in HTML codes in here, which some platforms are happy to ignore, some platforms are happy to display. It can get a little weird, so I just recommend that you always stick with that without formatting option. But there we go. That's really all I wanted to share with you today. So I finally got another clip out of this live stream. I don't know if I'll do more of these live streams. I'm at a weird part of the year where I'm a little bit bored and I want to do creative things, but I'm also incredibly tired. So it's just a matter of sort of trying to figure out what will work. But I hope you're all having a great time of the year. Look after yourselves, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon.